I'll never forget sitting in a senior leadership meeting about 10 years ago when one of the VPs turned to me and asked me why we were losing people to companies that paid less than us. Their second in command immediately jumped in and started talking about retention bonuses. And then there was the suggestion of improving our already really substantial benefits package. And I sat there thinking we're answering the wrong question, because the real question wasn't about what we're offering. It was about why we existed in the first place. If we couldn't answer that clearly, no amount of perks or pay would keep the right people around for the long term. If you haven't already watched Simon Sinek's TED Talk, Start With Why, after this, go and watch it. Seriously, it's about 18 minutes that will fundamentally shift the way you think about building and sustaining a company. But Sinek's core insight is really simple. Most companies know what they do, some know how they do it, but very few know why they do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. In it, Sinek introduces something he calls the golden circle, and that's 3 consecutive circles with why at the centre, surrounded by how and what's on the outside. Most companies communicate from the outside in. Here's what we do, here's where we're different, do you want to buy it? But inspiring leaders and companies flip that around, turn it on its head. They start with the why. His example is Apple. Apple doesn't say we make great phones and computers. They say everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. And then we happen to make great phones and computers. One statement is about the product. The other statement is about a belief system. Guess which one is going to build the loyalty? After watching companies for over 20 years scale internationally, your why becomes even more critical when you're crossing borders, because what works in London might not resonate in Japan. Your products will always adapt, your processes will change, but the why is the anchor. That's what gives you the clarity when you're operating across several time zones. Sinek talks about Apple, but let me talk about startups. Most have brilliant products, smart founders, they grow fast, but they have absolutely no idea why they exist beyond making money and disrupting the industry. When most founders are asked what they stand for, they speak about everything apart from their why. When you ask their team what makes them different, they talk about the roadmap. They do not articulate why this company needs to exist. Without the why, you can't hire people, because people don't join the product, they join for the mission. Sinek talks about the limbic brain, the part that controls our decision-making process, but has no capacity for language. That's why gut feelings matter. That's why you can't always explain why you trust someone or you're going to choose one option over another. People make decisions emotionally and then they justify them rationally. And they always have and they always will. So when you're hiring, when somebody accepts an offer instead of your competitors, it's not about your benefits package being better. It's because something resonated, something felt right. Your job as a leader is to make sure that that something is your why, not just your compensation. So maintaining your why as you grow, Sinek talks about it like it's fixed, it's permanent, it's unchanging. And maybe it should be, but I've seen what happens when you go from like 10 people who all sit in one room to 100, 200, 1,000 that are spread across 5 countries. Your why begins to dilute. Not because people stop caring, but because you stop talking about it. You get busy with the what and the how. You build processes and policies. You create org charts and reporting lines. And somewhere in all of the structure, the reason why you started the thing in the first place just becomes background noise. And this is where I've seen the late night crisis calls happen. Founders ring me because their team doesn't feel like a team anymore, or because their best people are leaving for competitors, or because they've just hired their 50th person and realised nobody below the exec team knows what the company stands for anymore. These aren't strategy or strategic problems. These are why problems. So how do you actually implement Sinek's framework when you're building a real company that has real pressures and real deadlines? First, please write down your why. Actually write it, not a mission statement for the website, a genuinely honest answer to why does this company need to exist? If we disappeared tomorrow, what problem would go unsolved? Who would care and why? Second, Stress test it with your actual team. Does it resonate? Do they recognize themselves in it? If it feels like corporate nonsense, bin it, start again. Your why should make people feel something, not just nod politely and give you silence. Third, build it into your hiring processes. I mean, not just mentioning it in interviews. Ask candidates what they care about, what problems they're drawn to. Listen for the alignment, because you're not hiring for skills alone. You're hiring people who give a damn about the same things that you do. Fourth, create rituals around the why. Monthly all hands where you talk about this month's work, why it exists. Quarterly reviews where you evaluate decisions against your why, not just your numbers. And annual celebrations of the impact you've made with that core problem that you were trying to solve. And fifth, protect it fiercely. It's not about choosing between two strategies. It's about whether to enter a new market. Will it help us solve a new problem? When you're about to hire someone senior, will they protect this or dilute it? Cynic doesn't talk much about international expansion, but I've watched companies try to scale globally, and this is where your why becomes your superpower. Your what will change by country. Maybe you can't offer the same product in Germany that you offer in Brazil. Your how will definitely change. Hiring practices, management styles, communication norms, they're all culturally specific, but your why, that should be universal. If your why only resonates in English or only makes sense in a Western context, you've got a problem, because you're not building a London company or a San Francisco company. You're building a company that happens to have people in those locations. And every single one of those people needs to connect to the same core purpose. So what Cynic doesn't say, but I will, is sometimes you don't have a why worth defending. Sometimes your company exists just because you found a market opportunity and you're exploring it. That's capitalism, and that's absolutely fine. But you need to know that that's why you're doing it. Because if you're building a transactional business, trying to manufacture a grand purpose is dishonest, and people will see right through it. It's better to be clear, like, we're here to make great products, make money and enjoy working together. That's a legitimate why. It's just not an inspiring one. The disconnect happens when founders try to have it both ways, when they want the financial upside of a transactional business, but the team loyalty of one with a mission-driven one. So you have to pick your lane, because the worst place to be is in the middle, where nobody quite believes your purpose, but you keep insisting that it matters. When I'm working with founders who are scaling, I will always make them come back to the why. Not because it's trendy, not because Cynic said so, but because it's the only thing that stays consistent when everything else is changing. Your product will evolve, your team will turn over, your strategy will pivot, your markets will shift. But if you know why you're doing this, then you've got your compass, your North Star. And when you hit that inevitable rough patch, and you will hit them, that North Star, that compass is what's going to keep you going. So do me a favour, go and watch Cynic's talk. Actually watch it. Don't just skim it whilst you're doing something else, and answer the hard questions. Why does your company exist? Why does anyone care? And most importantly, do you believe it? Because if you don't, no one else will.